My name's Tamera's husband, and I'm glad to be here. And I am very grateful to have that honor. And, Tamera is an amazing woman. We've been together, married 13 years, but together about 15, and it has been an amazing journey. And I am so amazed by the quality of her sobriety, the intuitive thoughts she has, the suggestions she gives me when I don't want them, and the love we get to share. It's really neat to be married to another alcoholic and to have solution in relations. And it's quite a blessing. And so with that, I will turn it over to Tamera.
My name is Tamera. I'm an alcoholic. My first husband wouldn't have said that he was grateful to be married to another alcoholic. But thank you so much. I appreciate that. My sobriety date is November 12th, 2007. And that means I got to pick up a 16-year chip last night at birthday night. And it was really awesome. And I want to take a moment to say thank you to Alcoholics Anonymous for that. But especially to this group, my home group, to all of you. I don't know what to say other than I'm so grateful that I get to be a part of this group and sit in meetings with all of you and hear your solutions and get to be friends with you and walk the journey together. Richard, thank you for asking me to talk. I am really nervous, but I did pray. I used to pray in the bathroom to the porcelain god, totally different prayers, but I went in the bathroom and I prayed, and thank you, Holly, for making today the cleaning day because it was nice and clean in there. So, today my prayers are much different, and that's really cool. So, let's get started. As you do, you kind of think, what am I going to say? And then I was trying not to think too much about what I was going to say. And, I just asked God to speak through me. And the book says that we try to share what we were like, what happened, and what we're like now. And that's what I'm going to try to do tonight. And it says we do this. It references the stories in the back of the book a couple of places because it says that we want the alcoholic to relate and say, I want that too. And so, that was my prayer. Hopefully, whatever I share tonight, you can relate and that Alcoholics Anonymous works. And there is a solution. As an alcoholic, we don't have to drink anymore. And that's an amazing thing. I was adopted by Richard in Virginia. And it's funny because what I focused on was not that I was adopted by them as a baby, but that I was given up. And that's how my mind works. My mind focuses on what's bad, what's wrong. I realize today that kind of thinking is part of my alcoholism. But I was adopted by them, and we moved to a small town outside of Houston when I was 3 years old. And I have an older sister and grew up with her. She was adopted from a different family. And I've always focused on what was bad with my childhood, but honestly, there was a lot that was really good. And my mom taught me a lot of really cool things. We would do outdoor things. I was a Girl Scout and all of that. But my dad was alcoholic. And so growing up in a home with an alcoholic, I guess it's different for everyone. But in my household, my dad either wasn't there or when he was there, he was very angry. And, he'd punch holes in doors and walls and that kind of thing. And it was very scary. I have always... what I was like is that I have always been eager to have you love me and or like me. and I've run my whole life on that fear of what you think of me, and if you like me, am I okay? I'd be okay if you liked me. And I don't know where that stems from. Is it, from being given up for adoption? Is it from the alcoholic home? I don't know, but it doesn't matter, because that I know now that is part of what makes me tick, I guess, and what has always made me tick, and that just fear inside growing up of that. So, so for me, I started working on step 1 when I was 14, and being powerless over alcohol. I had my first drink at 14. And I snuck out of the house with my sister, and we met these boys, and my first drink was Boone's Farm. I was trying to think, because it's not very classy, but I was trying to think what the equivalent today is. I don't even know if they have that anymore, but I'm thinking maybe, I don't know, is it White Claw or something like that? I don't know. I have no idea, but yeah, that was my first drink. And I remember feeling like the tension kind of release, and I was excited to be sneaking out of the house and hanging out with these older people, and thought that I was having fun and that kind of stuff. But honestly, when I look back on it, I don't know, it wasn't that great, I guess. And I didn't start drinking every day after that. It was like I was 14. I couldn't get alcohol that often. But I would drink when I could. And when I drank alcoholically, I guess, if I look back at it. I was never sipping. I was usually gulping, and that's how I drank from the get-go. So, I think I had that allergy that the book describes and the doctor's opinion. But I didn't know that. I didn't know that then. So, so growing up in a small town, I couldn't wait to leave. I was like so ready to leave. And I made it as far as Houston, which is only 40 minutes away. But, I had arrived. My parents always instilled in me work ethic. So, I had a job since I was 14 years old. And so I came to Houston and got an apartment and all of that good stuff. I will back up a little bit, though, because before that, I'd gotten kicked out of the house. I was getting kicked out, because I was sneaking out a lot. I was doing things in high school, like sneaking out, drinking. I was in this abusive relationship, so my parents hated him. And, but, I mean, he was really my higher power. And that lasted for years, and it was awful. So that was another reason I needed to get out. But when I'd gotten kicked out of the house, and I'd met my birth mom when I was 18, and she let me come live with them. Now I had 2 or 3 half siblings, and they were young. I think like 6, 5, and 3. They were young kids. And so, so here I am, I'm 18 years old. I am working and stuff, but I am just getting into the throes of like party. And so, like I do, I can behave myself for a little while, but, then I need my freedom. And so I took advantage of her letting me live there, but her husband didn't like that I was going out, coming in late, getting drunk, especially with the little kids. The other thing that happened in that time period was I'd gotten pregnant, and I made a decision based on fear and based on self, honestly, to terminate that pregnancy. Now, making that decision, when I look back, put me into a tailspin. I couldn't live with myself. So I started drinking a whole lot more to numb that and to forget. And and to justify, frankly. And so all that partying and all that, she kicked me out, and that's when I got a place by myself. And I was making my way as best I could. Drinking seemed to be my release, my courage, my strength. It just seemed to be the best part of my life, I think. At that time, it was like, it just wasn't a problem, I didn't think. So I met my first husband shortly thereafter that, and he was a bar manager. Yay. Yes. Because then I could drink all I wanted. I mean, party on. And yeah, game on. It was a big spiral. And, I was having some consequences, fights and things like that. But the biggest thing that was happening was I was getting really ashamed because, we'd laugh about it, but I would drink at his bar and, I'd show up there after work, drink at his bar and pass out in the bathroom. And, I'd just be on the toilet, passed out in the bathroom. And so we'd all laugh about it. It was funny because I did it a lot. And they would kind of just leave me in there because they knew where I was. And I wasn't going to cause any trouble. But then I was ashamed of that. I was like, I don't want to be doing that. I don't want to have to have them to collect me out of the bathroom. And, it just was, I was ashamed of it. But I was hanging around a lot of people that drank like me. And so I justify that that's just what we do. And everybody drinks like me. And I found out later they didn't. But so that relationship didn't work out, and I just keep doing what I do and just keep trying to do the best I can, and the other thing, it's interesting when I did an inventory, my 4-step inventory, we do a resentment inventory, we do a fear inventory, we do a sex inventory. And what I learned was a lot about my pattern with my relationships, and it talks about not being able to form a true partnership with another human. And for me, it was just that way. My relationships were selfish, and I didn't know that at the time, but truly I was trying to get my security emotionally from another person. And it's impossible because people are fallible. And anyway, part of that was, I never wanted to be alone. That was like my big, big fear. I just didn't want to be alone. And so, I don't know. I just get into the next relationship, basically. And that's how it works out. Now, I do have drugs in my story, but, in Alcoholics Anonymous, we try to stick to our primary purpose of alcoholism. The drugs came and they went. But when they came, I was calf roped. It took me down to a very deep, dark place. And like I said, the drugs came and went. But in the relationship where I started using drugs, more consequences, and I really did it so I wouldn't black out because it helped, quite honestly. But what I see now when I look back is the progression. The party on the weekend became the happy hours, became the, I was a binge drinker, but my binges were getting closer together, basically. And so, the first time I came into Alcoholics Anonymous was in 2005. And I was in yet another relationship. And I was, like I said, I could be good for a while, but then, the real me shows up, the alcoholic. And by this time when I drank, I acted pretty bizarrely. My personality would change altogether. I would be combative, mean. I was no longer a happy drunk. I was a mean drunk. And it's not real good to be in a relationship with a mean drunk because, that just doesn't work out very well. There was lots of fights and then lots of begging for forgiveness from me and that kind of thing. And what happened was I had an apartment, but and I'd gone out that night, and I think it was kind of one of those things where I was just going to have wine, cook dinner at home, have wine, and stay in for the night. But what happened was I come to from a blackout in the middle of a dance floor on a club on 1960, and these two guys are talking to me, and I'm telling them about my boyfriend that's going to come pick me up, but I don't think he was. And this whole thing was happening, and so basically they gave me a ride home, and luckily they didn't murder me, or do anything bad to me. And he was pissed. I mean, he had it, and he couldn't watch me do this anymore. And so I had one more bout of drinking, and then I was trying to save that relationship. And what happened was I drank a lot, and by this time I'd gone to a psychologist, a psychiatrist, as we do, and I never was honest with them about how I was drinking or what I was doing, but they prescribed for me sleeping pills and what they prescribe. So I drank a lot and took a bunch of my, done some outside issues, and then took a bunch of my sleeping pills. And my boyfriend and his brother were rehabbing this boat, and I decided to go over to his house to, plead mercy again and please forgive me, and end up passing out in this boat. And no one could find me. My car's in the driveway. The doors are open. My purse is on the seat, and they think I've been abducted. And it's not funny, but it's funny. They did not think it was funny. Anyway, they found me, and they took me to the hospital. That's the point of that story. And what happened in the hospital is a social worker came up, and I was in the emergency room in one of the little, rooms, and she started asking me about my drinking. And for the first time, I was honest with someone about what I was doing. And I told her about the drinking. I told her about the outside issues. And she suggested I go to Alcoholics Anonymous. Actually, she suggested I go to an outpatient program. And I thought, okay, that's how I'll get him back. I'll do that. I'll get serious. And then he'll forgive me. Well, that motivation didn't exactly work. I did go to the outpatient program, but I continued to drink, and they almost kicked me out of it. And I got nothing from it. I went to my first AA meeting, Spring Branch, when it was over off of the 2920, I think. Anyway, it was like this low room, and there was smoke, and it seemed dark, and it was... I don't know, it just seemed dark and dingy, and it seemed like the people were really old, and I don't know, and all I heard was blah, blah, blah. And I was kind of, like I said, just doing it to get out of trouble. I didn't think I was an alcoholic, and it didn't stick. It didn't work. I went to AA meetings. I started going to AA meetings, and I'd go over to Champions, and because I worked close by, and I'd go over there and I'd listen, but I wasn't really hearing what they were saying, and then I'd drink, and then I'd come back and get another desire chip, and it was just that routine, that merry-go-round that I was on, trying to get sober, but not wanting to be sober, not wanting to be an alcoholic, and it was awful. And for 2 years, it continued to be that way. I got really scared because I was doing I was having more blackouts, so I got scared of living by myself. So my mom offered to take me in. 1 second. So I moved in with my mom, thinking, that ad infinitum on how we try to control our drinking. It doesn't have move in with your mom, but it should, because that's what I did. And I thought, okay, I'm going to be in a safe place. And but that turned out to be awful too. My mom drank, and we would get in these knockdown, drag-out fights. And she would tell me, kind of like what my friends had told me, like that switch would happen in my eyes, and my personality would change, and it would just be, I would just be gone. I'd be walking and talking, but I wasn't there. So, I'd moved in with her, and my drinking continued to progress. My mom and dad had divorced long time ago when I was little, and my dad had moved to Austin. And, my relationship with my dad was distant, but I think he tried the best he could. He would write me letters and reach out to me, and I love my dad, but I was always embarrassed that he was an alcoholic. I was always, we just couldn't have a close relationship, although we tried to. But one of the things we did together was we would go hunting. And so November 2007, I went hunting, and it was just me and my dad that weekend. And I had gotten into the deer blind that morning. I'd fixed myself a really big drink. And, I was hunting, but I was really just drinking, and in a deer blind. And so I left there on that Sunday pretty drunk, and driving on those curvy country roads. I mean, there's so many times that I did wreck a lot, but there's so many times that I should have been dead. I joke that my car sent me to rehab in it because it had a lot of whiskey dents in it. But it was Sunday, so they wouldn't sell anything until noon. So I pull into Austin on my way back to Houston, and I pull in, and I'm waiting. I think it was like 20 minutes until they'd sell it to me. So I was sitting there, hanging out, and then as soon as I bought my beer, I got in the car, opened it up, took a big swig of it, and rear-ended a guy. I know. And it was like, oh. But, I'm kind of in like this, I call that one a brownout because I was still remembering some of it. But, so the cops come, and I'd gotten pulled over a lot of times. I mean, all throughout my drinking, I'd gotten pulled over a lot and was always able to be let go. Well, this was a woman cop. And and I was being one of those drunks that knew her rights, and I need my cigarettes, and blah, 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 that kind of person. And anyway, I got arrested. And so they took me to jail in Travis County, and, I was sitting in the cell thinking, how did I get here? I'm not a bad person. Like, how did I end up here? I'm in my little black and white jumpsuit. And I'm just crying my eyes out in my cell. And I get out of that, and it's the most god-awful drive back to Houston. I'd gotten released and got a cab out to my dad's, got my car out of impoundment and all that stuff, and then I drove home on Monday. Needless to say, I wasn't at work. And so I get back to Houston, and my mom and sister had been looking up places for me to go. And they suggested I go to treatment and, go and stay in treatment. And I didn't want to go. I argued, I've got to be at work. I had all these excuses, blah, blah, blah. But they convinced me to just go and get assessed. And so I go and get assessed, and guess what? They said I needed to stay. So then the bargain was, okay, I'll stay to detox. And, I was sitting in, they had this atrium. It was at the park in the old one on La Concha. And I was sitting in this atrium on this couch, and I was just crying my eyes out, trying to figure out if I'm going to stay here. And I guess this guy saw me, and he walks over to me, And I don't know where he is today. His name is Kevin, and that's all I know. And Kevin comes over and he sits down by me and he says, "Hey, I see you're having a hard time, deciding. And I just want to let you know I've been here a week. And I really think you should stay. It's really helped me." And that's the first time I could feel like someone understood me. Because I couldn't explain to anyone else what was going on up here or what was going on in here or why I couldn't drink normally or, why I had to hide it and sneak it and pass out and black out. And I if you knew what was going on in here, you would like me. And so I'm so grateful that he took the opportunity to come. And that's what we do for each other, is help each other. And so I stayed. And, I did their whole program. I even did the year aftercare, which was so surprising. I'm such a quitter on things like that. So I was in that treatment center, and they had the alumni come in, and Friday nights was a huge meeting. It was an alumni meeting, and it was very intimidating, and people said they had like 20 years of sobriety, and I thought, why, I wasn't going to be in it for that long, actually. I didn't. But it was a big rah-rah, and it was like everybody was excited, and the room was just full of laughter and talking. And it's a lot like what I walked into when I walked into this group. Just people joyful. And I guess I thought AA was going to be everybody just wringing their hands and how are we not going to drink and it's going to be miserable. But one of the alumni, I was outside smoking a cigarette. And he walked over and he introduced himself and he said, "Hi, my name is Raul." And I was like, "Hey." And he said, "So," because I was going to be getting out, and they make sure you have a plan. You got to have a plan. And I'd had a temporary sponsor and all that stuff like they suggest. But so he asked me, "Do you have a plan?" Because one of the plans is part of the plan is to get a home group. And I said, "Well, yeah, I need to find a meeting close to where I live." And he's like, "Well, where do you live?" And I told him, and he said, "You need to go to the Cypresswood group." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I looked up, before I looked it up on back then it wasn't internet, it was a booklet. And so I looked in the booklet, and this group had a 6:30 a.m. meeting. And so with me, I was like, oh, I can get AA out of the way for the day. I can do that and then live my life, kind of check that box off. And it's so funny, but I'm so grateful that he led me to you guys. And I got out of treatment, and I came here, and I came to that morning meeting. And it was much, much smaller then. And I'm so glad it was, because I was so afraid. I was so afraid to talk. I was afraid that if I opened my mouth, I would just shatter. I'd fall apart. Like if I looked in your eyes, I'd just shatter. And pretty much every time I did open my mouth, I fell apart and cry. But ask these guys. But I landed in this group. I got a sponsor and I started working the steps. And, I said I'd started working on my first step when I was 14, and it's true. I took all that time, even from the first AA meeting and all those desire chips. It took what it took for me to surrender, for me to concede to my innermost self, I am an alcoholic. And I used to ask my first sponsor, well, why? Why do you think I'm an alcoholic? Like I wanted to pinpoint the day and the hour that I turned alcoholic. And she goes, it doesn't matter why. If you are, and you're alcoholic like me, you'll die from it. And she pointed out in the book what it talks about. And she offered me this solution through the steps. And we started to work the steps. Now, this sponsor, I wanted again, the theme is, I want you to like me. So I wanted her to like me. And I wanted to be like A+ student kind of thing. And so when she'd give me an assignment, I'd like go home and do my assignment, and I'd show up, and it was good that I did what I did. God can use my character defects or my character flaws for good purpose. And in that case, my people pleasing was definitely for good purpose, because it got me to do the work, And I was, the more I sat in the meetings, the more scared I got that, oh my gosh, I really am an alcoholic. Because I would hear you share and I would relate to what you had to say. And I'm like, ooh, and we read that book together, and we started reading about Jim's story and Fred's story. And I have no mental defense against that first drink. And I was like, oh my God, I was like so scared that at any moment I could just accidentally drink at any moment. And so, it's weird because I had that going on in my head, but then I also had in my head, check the box, AA out of the way for the day, and then go do my thing. So, I don't know. I got to stay sober, and I'm grateful to God for that. Now, speaking of God, I came to AA with a God that I was afraid of. And I'd gone to church. We'd gone to church since I was little bitty. And my mom, had us going. We went on Wednesday night and Sunday morning and Sunday night, and I'm sure they were talking about a God that was loving or forgiving, and but what I heard was, if you're bad, and they called it backsliding, if you're backsliding, you're going to hell, and if you're doing it and you die, well, you're doomed for eternity. So I was really afraid of God. I know, right? Yeah, so I was always backsliding, so it was like, ooh. But I believe there was a God, and what happened in step 2 was that I had to set aside a lot of old ideas. Now, I will tell you, I did not do that well at first. For me, the group of drunks in the room was my higher power. I mean, now I wasn't praying to you or anything, but it was like the power I feel in the rooms, the connection I feel in the rooms, that's what I'm relying on. And that was it for me at first. Alcoholics Anonymous put my hand in God's hand, but it's taken a while. But I got through my second step, and the third step seemed to be like such a relief, like, oh, I don't have to control everything. I didn't think I was a controlling person, but turns out I play God a lot. Now, it's not usually overtly out here, like I'm telling you what to do, although I do tell you what to do sometimes. That part was true. But I try to catch myself, and I try not to do it. Anyway, but it's up here, like, this is how it should look. This is how it should feel. This is how it should turn out. Like, it's like, if it's not that way, it's wrong. And, I had to just turn myself in and try as best I could. Now, for me, it was just my drinking at the beginning. It's like, God, you can have all of that. As I've stayed here, I have surrendered more and more. And, it's been a series of surrenders for me. But it's always have to be followed by action, which it describes in the big book. After we do that third step, we vigorously launched into this course of action. And that was the inventory. And doing that inventory was terrifying. It was eye-opening. But one of the things it did was it really made me feel part of. It really made me feel like I was doing this deal. I was all in, and I felt good when I sat in meetings like, I'm really doing Alcoholics Anonymous. I really am doing this. which was a surprise to me too. I just couldn't believe it. But I think that's what's so powerful about a group. That attraction of we're doing this together. You're working the steps. It's not like I'm out here doing all the work by myself, because I've never liked that. I've never done that. So, but going through that inventory and seeing the truth about myself. And at first it was very surface level. I've done more step work since then. And I was telling someone today, I was like, I think the first time I went through the steps was the easiest, actually. Because the more I'm here, the deeper I dive into who I really am, it's hard to look at. It's really hard to look at. It's hard to look at how I operate. And it's humbling, and I realize more and more how much I need Alcoholics Anonymous. I realize more and more how much I need a higher power. I chased my tail big time on 6 and 7, and still can with, okay, am I doing it or is God doing it? Am I acting differently or is God going to fix me? It's like, blah, blah, blah. And because my sponsor said, this is where you act differently. And when you get the opportunity to, when the road splits, which way are you going to go? And I need God, but I was kind of still trying to run on my own power. And I can still do that. I've gotten better, but 6 and 7, I joked not too long ago that Michael gave me, I don't know, your sponsor's version of how he took you through that. And he wrote it all down. It was so nice of him to share all that with me. And I put it in my desk drawer. And I don't know how many years. That was probably 8 years ago, 6 or 8 years ago. It's still there. And I haven't done it that way. So I don't know. Yeah, but thank you. I think the biggest place where I felt God in my sobriety was doing step 9. I was so afraid to go face these people and admit my wrong and ask how I could make it right and ask if there's anything else we need to discuss. And I was like, because I blacked out a lot. But I was afraid, but I just felt so much freedom, and most people were just happy I was sober, happy I was doing well, didn't want much more than that. Some people closed the door in my face and said, get out of here, and I don't want to see you anymore. And so it was my job to leave them alone and not try to convince them to like me, which is really hard. But, just doing that step 9 work, I really felt, and I prayed for courage a lot. I prayed for courage to come here tonight. And God shows up, and God showed up for me then. And I had a sponsor, and I had people in my life that were willing to walk with me through all that. Now, they couldn't make the amends for me, but they would certainly be there before and after. And I got to make amends to my dad. I thought my alcoholism was not hurting my family. But what I know about it is that I withheld myself. I kept myself to me. I didn't, that distance I talked about with my dad, it just wasn't on his side. It was me, too. And so I got to make amends to my dad. And I know now that my dad did go to AA. I have his big book. And there's some stuff highlighted in it, so I'm sure he had somebody working with him, was reading it or whatever. So we tried. But my dad died of alcoholism. And the beautiful thing about Alcoholics Anonymous is I had made things straight with him. and our relationship was much better than it had ever been. But I'd gone to a retreat the weekend that he wasn't doing well, and I got out of that retreat, and I didn't have service where we were, and my stepmom had left me a message and said, your dad's not doing well, and he's on hospice, and you may want to come. And, that was Sunday, and I didn't know what to do. Because I was right in the middle of Houston and Austin. I was in Giddings. So I called my sponsor, because that's what you guys taught me, is to reach out and ask for help. And she said, go home and wash your clothes, pack your bag, and go see your dad. And I did that. And the most beautiful thing happened. I got to be with my dad. And I got to hold his hand. He took his last breath. And I'm so grateful that I had worked these steps and I had a relationship with him. And I was so grateful that that I could see his alcoholism differently too. And not be so mad at him and ashamed of it. He was just sick like me. And, up to that point, I had kind of, like I said, just been checking the box for AA. Even though I had a sponsor and had been working the steps and everything, I wasn't all in. I wasn't in the middle of the fellowship. At least I didn't feel like I was. And the people from that morning meeting came to my dad's service, and they didn't know my dad. And I was so touched by that. I couldn't believe that they would drive to Austin and go sit in his service, just to support me. And after that, I thought, I want to be part of them. And that's when I got all in, and I got in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous and really wanted to be part of you guys. And in my years sober, my mom died, and there's people in this room that came to her service and supported me. And again, that's what we do for each other. I don't have to walk through life alone. And I don't have to do anything alone if I don't want to. I know that I have people that will love me and help me no matter what. The beautiful thing is, I try to do that too. I try to pay it back as best I can. And getting to be of service to do this, although I don't like it. It is a way of being able to pay it back. My first sponsor said, now, and she would do her head like this and do her little finger like that. And she said, now you say yes if you're asked to do service in AA. You say yes. If you can do it, you say yes. And I'm like, I said yes. But, growing in 10, 11, and 12, and trying to stay current with, letting go of my past and cleaning it up in step 9, I've been on a roller coaster ride. It is a roller coaster ride sometimes. Early sobriety seemed to be, high highs and low lows. Emotionally, I would just, I don't know. I was on a pink cloud for a long time. I think the first 4 years I was on a pink cloud. And then what happened was I kind of started to take credit, that 6 and 7, I was, debating whether it was me or God. I was like, well, I think it's me, I'm going to meetings, and I got in this really bad place, and I got really angry at God. And by this time, I had met my husband. We'd gotten married, and that was. I want to point out that Alcoholics Anonymous, the fellowship, doesn't just come to bad things, because I've mentioned a couple of sad things. I mean, it was the majority of AA people at our wedding, and it was awesome. It was so amazing. So, I mean, we are there for each other in those things too. But, I started to take some of the credit, I think, and And like I said, I got in a really bad place. And I worked, I don't even know how I worked through that. I stuck close to my sponsor. I'd gotten a different sponsor by this time. And we did some, oh yeah, I know, I did step work. We did some really intense step work. And I got a lot of relief, but it's so weird. I don't know if you guys have this where you're just like, I don't really know what happened that year. I can't really, I know I was doing AA. I know I was helping people. I know it was here, but it's just kind of like all a blur. And that period, it probably wasn't for him because he got the brunt of my my yuck. But I made it through that, and I was humbled. And I think that was the point of all of it, is that, to have that humility. God keeps me sober. And so in 10 and 11, keeping current with my inventory and trying to stay in conscious contact with God through prayer and meditation is so important. And where the book describes it, that will grow in effectiveness and understanding, certainly that has happened, especially the understanding where I just understand more and more that I ain't got this, and I have to keep coming back and taking the actions that you guys suggest on a daily basis and trying to surrender more and more my will and my life to God. And then step 12, getting to help other alcoholics. I learned so much about myself. I really do. I learn so much because I'm looking in the mirror. And when I'm sitting across from another woman and they're talking about what's going on with them, I'm sitting in that mirror. And it's amazing to watch people, like the light come on, and to watch them change and to watch them grow. And that's an honor. It's funny because I was telling a friend this morning that sometimes in AA it just feels like you're just putting one foot in front of the other. One of my old ideas is that if I'm growing spiritually and God, and I'm close to God, it feels like this, and it just feels tremendous, and that's how it's supposed to feel. And then either that, or if I'm growing spiritually, it has to be really painful, and really like awful. And those are old ideas. I can be growing spiritually in the quiet moments, in the regular everyday moments. And I guess I'm still chewing on that. I'm still chewing on that. I heard in a meeting the other day, and I love this, and I've been thinking a lot about it, is that my sobriety is too important to be based on my emotions. And I'm like, yes, because I really do base a lot on my emotions. And the saying, feelings aren't fact, I think that was on my 4-step inventory, because I hate it. I hate that. I think it was one of the principles on there. But it's true. I mean, and they change in like that. So I guess they're not fact. But, I just, my life is really good today. I get to have a relationship that isn't sick and twisted and full of arguments and blame and keeping score and like just all the ugly stuff that used to be part of my relationships. I get to be in a relationship with my husband, and I get friendships today, and we laugh and we get to be real, and I'm so grateful for that. I think, Jay's card said, do you mind if I say what was in the card you put in my birthday card? He says, here we are again this year. And he ended it with I hope it never changes. And that's how I feel. I hope I never not want to be in Alcoholics Anonymous because you've saved my life. You've given me a life. And you've given me a relationship with God today. And I'm just so grateful for that. And I think that's all I have.